For thousands of years, the indigenous people of North America passed down a warning, a rule that seemed simple but absolute. Never whistle at night in the forest. Never call out to something you can't see, because in the deep woods, something calls back. The Algonquian tribes spoke of the Wendigo, a creature that was once human but became something else, something that hungers. The Navajo warned of skinwalkers, beings that wear the faces of men but move like animals, that hunt at the edge of firelight. These weren't just campfire stories, they were survival instructions, passed down through generations. But when the settlers came, they laughed. Primitive superstition, they said, old wives' tales. By the time the National Park Service was founded in 1916, these warnings were forgotten, erased, dismissed as folklore from a simpler time. We had maps now, radios, helicopters. We didn't need ancient warnings. We had conquered the wilderness, or so we thought. June 14th, 1969, the Great Smoky Mountains, the same forests where the Cherokee once refused to travel alone, where they warned their children, never stray from the path. A family of 7 is having a picnic. It's a beautiful afternoon, clear skies, warm sun filtering through the trees. Dennis Martin is 6 years old, blonde hair, bright eyes. He's playing with his brother and 2 other boys. They decide to sneak up on the adults. A harmless game. The 4 children run into the woods, giggling. They're going to circle around and jump out. Dennis's father watches them disappear into the tree line. He smiles. He looks down at his sandwich. 20 seconds pass, maybe 30. 3 of the children come running back, laughing. Dennis's father looks up. He counts the boys. 1, 2, 3. Where's Dennis? Where's your brother? The children stop laughing. They look around. He was right behind us. Dennis's father stands up. He calls his son's name. Nothing. He walks to where the children emerged from the woods. He calls again. The forest is silent, completely silent. No birds, no wind, no sound at all. Dennis Martin had vanished in less than a minute, in broad daylight, with 6 adults within shouting distance. The search began immediately. Within hours, over 200 people were combing the forest. By the next day, 1,400 searchers, Green Berets from Fort Bragg, FBI agents, bloodhounds. They searched for 9 days. They found nothing. No clothing, no footprints, no sign that Dennis Martin had ever existed. The official report would later state, "It is as if the child simply vanished into thin air." But there was one detail that was kept quiet, buried in the witness statements. A family hiking nearby, half a mile from where Dennis disappeared. They reported seeing something that afternoon, a figure moving through the trees, tall, hunched over, carrying something. When investigators asked them to describe it, they said it looked like a man, but it moved wrong. Too fast, too fluid, and it was covered in something dark, hair or fur. The Park Service dismissed the sighting, but the direction the figure was moving was toward an area the Cherokee called where the voices come from. Dennis Martin wasn't the first, and he wouldn't be the last. There are over 400 sites managed by the National Park Service, 85 million acres of protected land, most of it unmapped. Hundreds of thousands of visitors disappear into these spaces every year. The vast majority come back, but some don't, and the ones who don't follow patterns that make no sense. David Paulides, a former police detective, began documenting these cases in 2011. What he found wasn't just tragic, it was statistically impossible. Over the next decade, he would catalog more than 1,600 unexplained disappearances, missing 411 cases, cases where the missing vanished in clear weather, cases where trained search dogs refused to track, cases where bodies were found miles away in areas already searched multiple times. The National Park Service has no centralized database of these disappearances, no official count. When asked why, their response was simple: it would be too expensive to maintain. There is another pattern, one that is rarely discussed in official reports, but survivors talk about it. They call it the Oz factor. Before a disappearance happens, the forest changes. It doesn't get dark, it gets silent. dead silent. Birds stop singing. Insects stop buzzing. The wind dies down. Survivors describe a sensation of being watched from all sides, a feeling of static electricity in the air, as if the environment itself has been paused. One survivor described it perfectly. "It felt like someone had put a glass jar over me," he said. "I could see the forest, but I couldn't hear it. I was cut off." This silence usually lasts for a few minutes, and then the vanishing happens. Scientists call this the predator effect. Animals go quiet when a top predator is nearby, but in these cases, the silence covers miles. What kind of predator is big enough to silence an entire forest? Let's talk about the specific patterns, because once you see them, you can't unsee them. Pattern 1. Disappearances near water. Rivers, lakes, streams. Bodies are found in water, even when the missing person had no reason to go near it. Pattern 2. Bad weather arrives immediately after the disappearance, not hours later, within minutes. Rain, fog, snow, as if the wilderness itself is erasing evidence. Pattern 3. Search dogs can't find a scent. These are trained bloodhounds, but in these cases, they sit down. They refuse to track. Handlers report the dogs acting confused or terrified. Pattern 4. Victims are found without shoes or clothing, miles from where they disappeared, in areas that should have been impossible for them to reach. And Pattern 5. The clusters. Certain locations have dozens of disappearances. Yosemite, Crater Lake, the Great Smoky Mountains. These aren't random, they're concentrated. April 8th, 2006. Paul Fugate, Chiricahua Wilderness, Arizona. Paul was hiking with friends, experienced, fit. The group stopped for a break. Paul walked 50 feet away. His friends heard him shout, "Help!" They ran toward his voice. They found nothing. Paul Fugate was never seen again. 6 months later, a hiker found Paul's body 7 miles away, naked, no signs of trauma, just a body in a place it shouldn't have been. Then there was Jared, October 2nd, 1999, Big South Trail, Colorado, 3 years old. He ran ahead on the trail and vanished. 4 years later, his remains were found 550 feet up the mountainside. Forensic analysis showed one of his shoes had been removed and placed back on his foot after death. Stacy Ann Aris, July 17, 1981, Yosemite. She walked a short distance to photograph a lake. Her father looked down to adjust his saddle. When he looked up, 75 seconds later, Stacy was gone. 2 weeks later, a ranger found a single set of bare footprints leading into the wilderness. The footprints ended at a rock face. They didn't come back out. But it's not just children or casual hikers. Let's look at the case of Thomas Mezek. November 15, 2015, Brant Lake, New York. Tom was 82 years old, but he was tough, an experienced hunter. He went into the woods with a group. Tom sat on a stump to wait for deer. He had a walkie-talkie, a rifle, and bright orange hunting gear. 2 hours later, no answer on the radio. They went back to the stump. Tom was gone. His rifle was gone. But here is the terrifying part. There were no footprints in the snow leading away from the stump. None. How does an 82-year-old man vanish without leaving a single track in the snow? The FBI was called in. They found nothing, but agents noted strange sounds on their audio equipment during the search, sounds that didn't belong in the woods. There are darker theories about what is happening out there. Feral humans. People who've lived in the wilderness for so long they've changed, become something else. Park rangers have reported seeing figures in the distance, moving on all fours. Fast. Too fast. Some witnesses describe hearing screams in the forest. Not animal screams, human screams that sound wrong. In 2015, a park ranger in Yosemite spoke anonymously. He described finding a missing hiker's backpack, shredded, destroyed. It looked like it had been torn apart by hands, he said. Human hands. Whatever is taking these people, it is intelligent, it is elusive, and it knows the terrain better than we do. So what do we do with this information? Maybe we just accept that there are things we don't understand, patterns we can't explain, spaces where the rules don't apply. Dennis Martin's father spent the rest of his life searching for his son. He died in 2020, never knowing what happened. The forest keeps its secrets. So the next time you're hiking alone and you hear something moving in the brush, and your dog starts whining, and the trail ahead seems just a little too quiet, remember the ancient warnings. You're not at the top of the food chain anymore. You're in their world now. The wilderness is beautiful, but it's not empty. It's never been empty. And maybe it's been watching us all along.